Welcome to the Fictionary Podcast, the show that helps you turn your words into bestsellers. I'm Shane Miller, Fictionary's Community and Customer Success Manager, and I'm here to help you structure stories readers can't resist. Enjoy the show. Hello, Fictionarians. Welcome to episode 8 of the Fictionary Podcast. In a little break from routine, I've got something a bit different for you today. Earlier this week, I was lucky enough to sit down with dark fantasy author Osmarie and talk about her experiences of editing all her novels in Fictionary. And we also talk about her fantastic book, Beasts of Prey. So I hope you enjoy that. But before we get to that, I've got a quick update about what's happening at Fictionary this week. As always, it's exciting times at Fictionary HQ. This week, our very own Fictionary Certified Story Coach editor, Lisa Taylor, hosted an event all about writing mysteries and taking the mystery out of writing mysteries. Do you see what she did there? It was a fantastic talk. Lisa's a fantastic presenter. She's really engaging. I know all of our community members were super engaged. They asked a ton of questions. Yeah, it was really, really good. And the events we host in the Fictionary community are always a ton of fun. So if you want to attend these events for free too, then join the Fictionary community for free today. As always, the link is in the show notes. Right, that's it for the update this week. Next up, it's a quick word from one of our Fictionary community members, and then we'll get straight into the interview with the incomparable Osmarie. This week's Voices of the Fictionary Community quote comes from William Stacey. William says, "Oh my God, where has Fictionary been all my life? I love this software." Thanks, William, not only for the testimonial, but also for being an integral part of the Fictionary community. Okay, so let's get into the interview with Osmarie. Hello, Fictionarians. Welcome to the Fictionary Podcast. Today, I'm here with Osmarie, who's the dark fantasy author of the World of Cerberus series and the upcoming Catalan and Chronicles. She was born south of Manila in the province of butterfly knives, strong coffee, and feisty people, and raised in a mixed background of agriculture and industry. Her childhood a combination of rural and urban. We're here today to talk about Beasts of Prey, and I'm going to read the blurb, and then we can get into the questions. So here's the blurb. In the hidden world of the Cerberus, two brothers inherited a tainted name, a deadly disease, and a beastly nature. One brother vowed to rebuild their fortune and restore the glory of their name. The other followed their father's heinous path. One woman crossed their path, unaware of her bloodline and a dark past that threatened well-laid plans. To be with her, the veil of secrecy that binds every one of their kind must be broken and sacrifices must be made. Then the deadly disease kicked in and the countdown to death had begun. In the end, it's a choice between honor and family, the life with the woman he cherished, or her blood that carried their salvation. That is a fantastic blurb, I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of it myself, yes.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That hooked me right in. So I was wondering, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your writing journey?
All right. As you read in my bio, I'm actually a businesswoman. That was the path I chose when I came out of school, I guess, because I've always thought in the Philippines that the only career for a writer is being a journalist. And being a journalist in my country is a very dangerous job.
Yes.
So I wasn't interested. I cannot imagine myself trekking after rebels and I like honestly that I wasn't interested in that. But I've always written ever since I've learned how to write. I've always written stories, but I've always thought it was just something I like to do. And I wanted to do it when I retire when I retire. But the pandemic hit and my older sister, she's into making films, and she
Okay.
asked if I could write something for Netflix, like a series. And I did a bit of research because I love research. I did a bit of research and I discovered Netflix most saleable series are usually fantasy,
Yes.
like Stranger Things. So I thought, and I love our lore. Philippine lore is very varied. It's really interesting, and I grew up with it. I grew up from my grandfather used to tell me all these stories, and I was fascinated. So anyway, and I love horror, so could like it's natural thing. So I was writing a script. I've never written a script. I just Googled what the format looks like, and I thought I'm gonna write a script. So I was writing a script, and halfway through it, I realized my story is so much bigger. And this is the world of the Viscerabus. Viscerabus is a word I coined.
Mm-hmm.
And it means viscera eaters. It's from the most notorious creatures of lore in the Philippines called aswang. So anyway, so this was early pandemic, about March.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided, because it's so much bigger, I decided to write a novel. Forgot the script because it wasn't, I don't know how to write it. But I wrote the novel and I finished the first draft in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And yeah, 6 weeks. And at the time, I didn't know about Fictionary yet. But because I'm not a trained writer, I started Googling, like looking for in YouTube, like seminars and whatever. I found Pro Writing 8. And since English is my second language, and the rules of my language is completely much more logical than English.
Yeah, definitely.
So I I decided to like learn online, and then they mentioned Fictionary. And when I found it, I was like, holy mother of God. Like there's like so I was attending writing seminars and at the same time learning how to use the tools. And I'm into tech because I'm a tech entrepreneur.
All right, cool.
So, but because of the pandemic, you have 2 years, 2.5 years of doing nothing. I literally wrote 6 books of the first series, which is the World of the Viscerabus.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's my writing journey. And essentially these stories that I write in the Viscerabus series has a basis on stories I've heard when I was young, and plus my experience because I'm kind of like I've traveled extensively when I was young. So it's a combination of a lot of those. So that's kind of like, so now I still work obviously because I'm not J.K. Rowling yet or Stephen King yet.
Yeah.
I always look at it as I work to support my writing habit, because what I discovered during pandemic is that writing makes my heart sing. Just makes me happy.
Yeah.
Even if I write horror and
Yeah.
gore, makes me happy. So so that's my writing journey. So yeah, and I'm into my second series now, also based on Philippine lore, but completely different from my first series, the Viscerbus. They don't intersect.
Right.
Just because the concept of the world of Viscerabus is much more scientific than what is in the lore. Yeah. So I'm super, because I love to read. I love movies. I have this certain sort of allergy, not allergy, like what do you call it? Some I just hate trope.
Right.
Like normally when I write a scene, I'm like, is this trope? It's a dialogue. Is this like? This is why I research a lot. I'm like super careful about plot holes because I'm a killer when you make me watch a movie or read a book. I'm
Yeah.
the Simon Cowell of these things. I complain a lot about those things. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's funny you should mention the pandemic. I think I seriously got into writing in the pandemic as well. And I think a lot of people did because there was nothing else to do, right? So
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, I managed to socialize a lot as well through apps. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard of Clubhouse, that audio app.
Yes.
Holy
Yeah.
moly. I did a lot of writing with the help of the horror writers there. Oh
Yeah.
my God. I learned so much fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
So, as we're here to talk about Beasts of Prey, I know I read the blurb, but can you expand a bit on kind of what Beasts of Prey is about and perhaps where you got the idea from? Obviously, you've mentioned lore there, but I'm just wondering if you could expand a bit.
Okay. So the Beast of Prey is it's the third story I wrote in the series. The first one is Rise of the Viscerabus, which how the world of Whispers works is you've got a main storyline, and there will be 4 books, and each book has 2 companion novels. So
Mhm.
the Beast of Prey is the second companion novel. So anyway, the story is that there, as I've said, the Viscerabus are it means viscera eaters. So they're the most feared creature of lore in the Philippines. They're called aswangs. We have so many movies and books and stories about it. Like every Filipino, if you've ever met a Filipino, ask them a story about aswang, they will have one. Because
Nice.
we literally believe they exist. Like, and we're scared of it. And they don't, unlike vampires just suck blood.
Mhm.
Viscera eaters eat internal organs like liver, heart, kidney. And the worst ones are those that suck fetuses out of mothers' wombs. Disgusting, right? Or
Yes.
scary. Anyway, so
Yes.
the Beast of Prey is a story of 2 brothers. They're viscerabus. We call them vis. So the viscerabus community, they live hidden in plain sight in human communities. So essentially, for centuries, their government, which is the Supreme Tribunal, their government encourages the humans to believe they're part of lore
Mhm.
because they outnumber the Viscerabus, and they're not. While they live longer and stronger and faster, and they're superhumans, they're not immortal. They can be killed. So anyway, so these 2 brothers, essentially, their father is a serial killer who kills their kind, and this is like the worst crime in their society because they're trying to preserve their number, so they don't want another of their kind killing their kind.
Yeah.
So essentially, because they're from a prominent family, and because of their father's heinous crime, so they kind of lost the prestige of their name, and they moved somewhere. They call it, I call it, tramwayed, or they transited somewhere with a new name. So the older brother, unfortunately, okay, let's go back. So the father, there's one thing wrong when you kill your own kind, because how to kill your own kind? You gotta eat their viscera.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the father contracted a disease, and this disease kind of goes hibernates for 20 or something years. So it just shows up. But when it shows up, there's the only cure, not treatment, sorry, not a cure. The treatment is to ingest or eat human fetus. So this is why, but it's not allowed by their law. It's a
Right.
criminal, uh, how do you call it? It's a crime punishable by death, essentially. So that's that is the treatment. So if you're inflicted by this disease, that's their government finds out because of the trail of dead pregnant women. Anyway, so he passed it on to these 2 brothers. But because they have about 20 years before the disease kicks in,
Mhm.
essentially, the brother in his head, the older brother in his head is like, I will build our name before I die. The younger brother, unfortunately, is a born serial killer. He followed the footsteps of the dad without telling the brother. That's kind of like the story. So the the conflict there is that if the older brother, when the older brother finds out, now he's kind of like, what do I do? Do I tell the government? Because they'll kill my brother. And at the same time, he doesn't want to lose face because he's already achieved certain prominence in their community. So kind of like that's the story. And then he met he meets this girl who's half Viseribus. So half Viseribus is that if you're a child of a male Viseribus, you're like human. You don't
Right.
inherit the trait. It's only the female who pass on these traits. So in the world of the Viseribus, the female are much more valued.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matriarchal society. So anyway, so the older brother meets this girl, and this girl doesn't know she's a Viseribus because her father kind of ditched her. Because this
Right.
is like accepted in their community. Because if you're a Viseribus and you married a human, you have a choice whether to tell them, and they have to accept that you're a Viseribus, and they have to keep that secret. So a lot of the males are like encouraged by their government, just dump these humans, never tell them, so you don't have to, you don't have to worry about exposing us. And
Yeah.
because a lot of the males are like, yay, free pass. You know what I mean? Like, have an affair and goodbye. This is accepted. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So this is this girl's background. So he has this choice: should I tell her or not? Now this is why in the blurb it says the blood of this girl is the cure to their. It's actually not the blood of this girl, but the actual cure for the disease is he has to consume his own child, like the
Right.
fetus. Yes, that will cure the disease. So if you're this is the main challenge of this book.
Yeah.
So for him to get cured, he would have to, pretty much eat his own baby.
Wow, that is some serious conflict.
Yeah,
Right there.
And I can tell you, I don't want to give spoilers, but I
Yeah.
can tell you, I honestly love of all this in the books and the series that I've written. I love the ending of this book. It's the kind of ending that I thought, um, it's poignant. It's kind of bittersweet because as a Viseribus, you live about 250 years. So you age very slowly.
Right.
For an Ergia, which is this half-blood, this girl is gonna live human lifespan. Can you imagine falling in love with someone, knowing you will outlive her? You would have half of your life without this woman. So what is that's kind of like the story. So, but I honestly love the ending of this one. To me, this is like, I really liked it. So,
Yeah, and it's great when you like the ending, like as an author, to have that feeling of, I really told a satisfying story here. That's one of the best feelings. It's fantastic.
I really do. It's to me, my editor told me when when she obviously did this book, and she was like I think 20 minutes after she finished, because she told me I was gonna finish it today, and then she sent me a message, and she told me, I'll give you a whole report, she said, but let me just tell you, I love the ending. And I'm like, thank you. I love the ending.
That's great.
To me, it's happy ending. To me.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's the best kind of ending for this kind of setup for this love story. So,
That's fantastic.
it's satisfying. It's satisfying, especially I just love this book, actually. It's dark. And somebody told me, actually my publisher told me that with this book, after they read it, they told me your stories should be grim dark. I'm like, what is a grim dark? I've never heard of a grim dark. I know what a dark fantasy is. Just like, what is grim dark? What is it? So I don't know.
There are just so many subgenres. Like the new ones popping up all the time. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's confusing. I'm like, huh? Okay. So
Yeah, I mean,
So
on that note, obviously you mentioned like subgenre aside, you clearly know what dark fantasy is because that's what you write. So can you explain a bit about the dark fantasy genre for people who might not know what it is and what readers can expect really from reading a dark fantasy book?
okay, actually, before I started writing, I had no my conception of dark fantasy. It's the story is dark like good versus evil. That's my concept of it. As a matter of fact, I thought dark fantasy is just another name for supernatural horror.
Hmm.
You know, like horror stories, but with supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of Googled it, but and lo and behold, it says in Google that essentially stories about whether you have mythological creatures, supernatural creatures, and you've got morally ambiguous character, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's magic in it or an ominous tone to it. And you've got and the topic really is about fear, death, dread. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Dark fantasy. And that's according to them, according to Google is what it means, which I thought, yes. So yeah, dark fantasy is essentially anything because it's fantasy, it's gotta have something supernatural or
Yeah.
magical about it. Because it's dark, I guess it's not Tinkerbell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is that's dark fantasy, I guess. And there's another term that I encountered that I was quite confused. High fantasy and low fantasy.
Right.
And it turns out high fantasy is when you have an alternate world, like the setting is in a different world, not Earth.
Hmm.
And low fantasy is if the supernatural part kind of migrates into our world. So I guess my books are kind of like that, kind of low fantasy
Low
because it's
fantasy. Yeah.
on Earth or in our society rather than um, a different alternate world. I guess something like I guess Star Wars is probably. I mean, of course, it's science fiction, but I guess for a fantasy series, I guess that's a high one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's how they described it. So
Awesome. That's
very
great.
interesting categories.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know. It takes a while to kind of narrow them down. I remember when I was putting out my first book and I was like, I'm going to have to really get to grips with these categories.
yes, I know, and and then of course I've attended certain seminars, and they always say, oh, so that you could sell your book, you got to know what the reader, your target market is, which is very typical of marketing speeches because I do sales and marketing, so I understand all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you write for your readers. I get that as well. But now it's a choice. To me, it's a choice of do I write anything that I think they will just read, or I write a stories I want to tell. It's quite a struggle for me. I
Yeah.
decided to just write whatever I want to write because I thought in my from my experience, if you throw enough marketing dollars on something, it will sell. I just don't have the marketing dollars yet, but but I'd rather I don't know because I like to tell the stories I like to tell.
Yes.
So yeah, so I kind of I suppose I being in the marketing and sales, I decided no, I'm not gonna follow that write for your audience kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and I
yeah,
mean, you have to have fun with it as well. I mean, yeah, you've got to write it in a way that people will enjoy. But if you're not having fun, I think the reader
yeah.
will kind of spot that in your work.
Yes, because you know the funny thing is I mean because I told you I like research. I when
Hmm.
I was writing I was researching all the platforms and what's selling, and then of course I encountered certain platforms like Wattpad and whatever,
Yeah.
and I look it up, and there a lot of them are writing um what do you call them, fan fiction.
Yeah. Hmm.
I can never imagine writing fan. I have nothing against it. Some
Yeah.
people can, but I cannot, just
Yeah.
because I like writing my own stories. I don't want to adopt somebody else's. It's just my opinion, or at least my preference as a writer. So yeah, so that's actually when I decided I have to write what I want to write about, which is, and I'm luckily for me, I'm very familiar with our lore.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I can tell you now, vampires in the hierarchy of scary things in my doesn't even count in our top 10. Like wimp, werewolves, pets, like it doesn't even, like literally doesn't even make a dent in our top horrifying creatures in the Philippine lore.
Oh, that's
So, but
great. Well, I definitely want to learn more about Philippine law now.
it's so much fun to write
It
about.
is. I can imagine that's really fun. Yeah, I write urban fantasy, so similar to you, but I can imagine it is very, very fun. Yeah,
If
definitely.
you want some suggestions, I will give you some link.
Yes,
If you
please.
and you know how creative Filipino minds are. Like, what the hell? Who thinks of this thing?
Oh, that's
Yes,
great. Oh, I love
yeah.
that. So, you edited or have edited in Fictionary Storyteller using the software
All my
before.
books. Yes.
Awesome. So, how does the software help you while you're editing? Like, what would you say are the best things about using the software?
The structure of the story. Literally, that's my nightmare as a, at least as a writer, because you never know if the story is, the pacing is right. Do you actually have a plot?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just tell stories like, what is the plot? What is the point of the whole thing? Fictionary just literally showed me this is how you do it. Like it's really helpful. So my process is like this. I write the first draft, or I write as I write in a Word document. I don't care about grammar. I just write the stories.
Mhm.
And then once it's done, I upload it in Fictionary. So that I consider that my first edit. So
Yeah.
then you do my, because I like the fact that you can break it down per scene and move some scenes,
Yeah.
because the exciting incident is what happened either way too early or way too late. Then you've got a really boring first part, and then I love that bit a lot. So, and then all those 36 uh, points that you gotta hit, that's kind of hard work to do, to be honest. So you so, but it kind of makes you think structured, because I'm more of a answer, I guess. I don't outline
Right.
the story. I know I probably, I sometimes I have a sort of an idea how the story would go, but these stories have their own way of shaping itself. Like the characters just, like I wanted to know, so like I've had stories where I think this person is the antagonist is gonna die, that did not die, just because as I'm telling the story or writing the story, something would come up and I like the antagonist now and don't want to kill the antagonist, things like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the dictionary helps so much in identifying where, not just the flow, like are your characters well written? Do you have enough exposure for them? So that that to me is really golden. And so that's usually how I do it. So I upload it, I do the edits, then I download it again. I give it a rest for about
Mhm.
a couple of months, 3 months, depending. Because what I do, so I don't chew my nails and I'm tempted to read. It happens. What I do
Yes.
is I write another book. So I write the other, like other books, the companion novels or whatever it is. I write something else. So now when I write, I have 2, 3 work in progress
Mhm.
that I write. So I would park that. And then what I do is when after 2 months and I go back to it and I read it again and do some more edits, I actually release my to my beta readers um, after 3 drafts, because it's
Okay.
too embarrassing, like grammar and whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would release it to beta readers. and they would come and another round of edits.
Yeah.
I don't normally submit. After I do the beta reading, I actually literally would re-upload it to Fictionary, because I delete the first one and I re-upload it to Fictionary and
Right.
start all over again. So it's just my process.
Yeah.
And then on the 6th, literally, so that kind of like repeats itself, because I would have 2 sets of readers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the last part before I submit to my editor is I listen to it through Edit Out Loud, which one of the seminars so this is the 3 software I use is Pro Writing Aid, which is a plug-in into Fictionary. So I use them together. And then the third one is Edit Out Loud, just because it just picks up things I've missed and like awkward dialogues or run-on sentences. It's when you listen to it, you go, "Hey, what?
Yeah.
Did I?" Especially, I tend to write very, because I used to write poetry, so I tend to write very flowery kind of things. So I have a habit of having long sentences.
Right.
And sometimes I would listen to Edit Out Loud. I'm thinking, I would lose breath just reading that too long. Yeah. So yeah, and then I'd submit it to the editor. So my editors are quite happy about. They've told me that at least it's not like what the other stuff that they would edit, which is like massively too much work. Mine is apparently, I'm pretty proud of that. It's currently a Fictionary.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think my process is really similar to yours, because I do a similar kind of read aloud thing at the end too. And it's amazing what you think sounds good when you're reading it on the page, but as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what? So yes, so that's how I do it. Anyway, that's my problem. I actually, honestly, out of the 3 that I use, the one that I don't think I can live without is actually Fictionary. Because Edit Out Loud, I can use other software.
Yeah, of course.
Pro Writing Aid, although I prefer Pro Writing Aid by a mile.
Me too.
From other, like, so you have, the others. But yeah, Fictionary, I don't think you have competition. I've never.
Well, that's good to know.
Do you? I mean, I've never paid attention.
I don't think we do.
Really happy.
It is definitely unique software, and I think you mentioned some of the the visual insights that you can have. Like, you can see your story arc and you can see your characters per scene in a way that you can't really see with any other software. Yeah.
For somebody like me who is a pantser, it's like, it's really difficult. Because I cannot outline for the life of me. I tried. I swear to God. I find it sucks the creativity out of me. It's like making business plan. Yeah. I'm tired of it. I'm just gonna write.
That's great. That's perfect. So obviously we've mentioned kind of your process, kind of pantsing and then going into Fictionary and filling it all out later. But we all know how much the process adapts as you change and as you write more books. So do you think there's anything that you'll do differently when you write your next book, or is your process pretty solid now?
I'm a creature of a habit somewhat. But however, I like improving my skills, because I do a lot of seminars and listening and stuff like that. I think in improving how I write is where I'm super open to learning to be a better writer. I've learned how to use M dashes and N dashes. I used to use just hyphens.
Yeah.
I don't know how to use it. So, but mind you, before I learned how to do it, I had to Google what it means. Like, oh, okay. So what the point is, I improve the way I write. And I think I'm getting the hang of what my strengths are as a writer. Because I've had three editors that did my books, and uh, two for the Viseribus ones and one for the Catalonian series.
Mhm.
And they all have the same feedback. I don't think they know each other, but they all have the same feedback as to what the strength of my writing is. And I realize I will write the way. I mean, it's the kind of writing I like to do anyway.
Yeah.
But I think when you're when English is not your first language, I tend to use, at least I tend to use words that most English speakers don't really use so much. Just because I read them a lot, and I love poetry, and so I'm kind of more, so that I think is what I will keep on improving how I write. As to the process, who knows? But for
Yeah.
now, I'm happy with what I'm doing because it's stressful to keep changing process.
Yes, yeah, it definitely is. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, can you tell everyone a little bit about what you're working on right now as well? Like what are you
Okay,
writing
I
next?
well, I mentioned that I have a second book. It's a Catalonan series. Catalonan is because the Philippine lore very varied in all regions. Catalonan is, I think, the best term is shaman.
Right.
It's a shaman, but where the work of a Catalonan is more than just being a shaman. They are healers. They're obviously shaman, and they're mediums. So it's all together combined in this. This is pre-colonial Filipino leaders in like they're the not really the chief, but they're super um well respected. So essentially, that's the Catalonian. That's the series is all about. So they're like, so it's so much more fantastical. It involves more than one kind of creature. Because in my world of Viscerbus, it's just that swang. In the
Right.
Catalonian series, you literally, this is almost epic that you've got all kinds of elementals, um, the gods, and so on and so forth. So, and I involved a lot of the old rituals, the old gods, the like in a more modern setting. It's not necessary, but it's not in the city. There are no technology, not because it doesn't exist, but because to stay true to its roots, it has to be based on nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the settings are like in the provincial, like rural parts of the Philippines. And so it's the Catalonian series. I've written the first book. It's gonna be published, I think, in the next 2 months.
Okay.
By next chapter, and it's called Dark Allies, Dark Adversaries. That's first book. I've
Nice.
actually written book two already.
Wow.
It's in this let it rest for 2 months.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's you rest. So I'm writing now the sixth companion novel for the world of the Viseribus.
Great.
And I have some other projects that I'm involved in, and which essentially, you remember I mentioned a clubhouse. There's a
Yes.
horror club that I'm a member of clubhouse, and those are film guys, like
Oh
literally
wow.
top. Like I don't know if you've heard of the movies like um oh my god, what is it called? Host.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
horror.
Hmm.
Yes. So he's
Yes.
part of that. So
Oh wow.
he's yeah, he's a Filipino. So anyway,
Oh cool.
so I know. So anyway, so apart from them, so I'm writing some scripts now, learning how to write some scripts.
Nice.
But I've written some scripts for it's a science fiction horror, so we're working on that one, and I've joined just to hone my skill in writing. I've joined like horror story competition.
Mhm.
Um, I've written one last Christmas where essentially I made a story about the 12 Days of Christmas, the song. And the judges told me, I wrote it in 4 days. The judges told me after, because it became the finale when they
Mhm.
selected it. The judges told me, we think you need to have yourself checked because that's the most crazy story. I thought it was funny, and I said, no, it's horrific. I can never listen to for the 12 Days of Christmas the song the same way again. I'm like, okay. So anyway,
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
I don't know. I'm crazy. I love horror.
Yeah.
I've been in the hunt for materials that would scare me. Not I can't find anything that scares me.
Yeah, I know that feeling too. Yeah, my books run quite dark, so I enjoy
Oh,
writing all that stuff too.
I wanna read your books
Oh,
because
we
like
can I can give you links afterwards, absolutely.
I would love to read horror stories of other creatures because it's a challenge for Filipinos, especially us. We grow up with the stories of aswangs, of these creatures sucking babies out of your uterus. Like, come
Yeah, yeah,
on, like
yeah.
if this is what you grow up. How else can you get scared? Like,
Yeah, it's going to be pretty impossible to scare you, right?
yeah, exactly. And it's a frustration. But anyway,
Well, that is a great place to wrap up. So, just to close, could you just tell people where they can find out more about you and your books and everything you do online?
all right. I have a Facebook page under my name, Osmarie Granlund, Granlund. Osmarie is Ozmari. I also have Twitter account, but it's under my Grace Granlund. But you can, if the handle is Grace Granlund, because my old Twitter account, and I also have Instagram, and my books are available in usual
All the
Amazon,
places. Yeah.
Barcelona, yeah, all these places, yeah.
Yeah.
So especially if they Google Viseribus, that term, only my books would show up because I invented that word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Okay.
have 4 books out, and fifth book is coming soon. This year as well. It's called The Maniac. That's even darker than The Beast of Prey.
Great.
So yeah.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Osmarie. That was great.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Share me your books. I want to read it.
I
So.
will do. Once again, it's time for my favorite part of the show. That's right, folks. It is question of the week time. And this week's question for you to answer is, if you use the Fictionary software, what's your favorite thing about it? And how has it helped you improve your writing craft? And if you don't use the Fictionary software, what is the number one thing that has helped you improve your writing craft over your writing career? I can't wait to read your answers. You can either leave a comment on the YouTube video or join the Fictionary community for free right now. Answer the question there and join in the discussion with tons of talented writers and editors. The link to join the Fictionary community is down in the show notes. I mentioned free events right at the top of the show. Not only do we have events hosted by Fictionary certified story coach editors like me, we also have fantastic guest speaker events, and we have got a brilliant lineup this year. Our next guest speaker event is with Ellen Jovin from the Grammar Table, and our Fictionary certified story coach editor James Gallagher will be sitting down with her to chat about all things grammar. So if, like me, you don't know one end of the Oxford comma from the other, I'm a story editor, not a copy editor after all, then this event is for you. And James is a copy editor as well, so I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. Join the Fictionary community for free today to attend. I'll say it once more. The link to join the community is down in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Fictionary podcast. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favourite podcatcher. And don't forget to head over to the YouTube channel or join the Fictionary community for free today and answer the question of the week. Happy writing and editing, and we'll chat again next time.